On to the January 17th, 2024 Charleston County Historic Preservation Commission meeting. If you would please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. This meeting has been noticed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. This commission acts in review and recommending capacity for designations and removal of historic properties and districts. The commission also reviews proposed National Register of Historic Places nominations. The commission has final decision-making authority of certificates of historic appropriateness. I'd like to introduce myself as the chair. My name is Melanie Millar. To my left, I have Jason Crowley and Pat Sullivan. To my right, I have Miss Anna Johnson, English Purcell, Michael Walsh, and Donna Gardner. Also seated to my right, I have Commission Attorney Mark Bell, and to my left, I have Joel Evans, Director of Zoning and Planning. Joel, would you please introduce your staff?
Sure. Andrea Melisick, the Deputy Director of the Department, Emily Piggott, who will be presenting the cases, and Marche Miller, who will be taking the votes. Also here is Walt Smalls, the Deputy County Administrator for General Services.
Thank you. I would like to remind you that in order to get a good recording of the meeting for the minutes, please speak loudly and clearly into your microphones. The next agenda item is the approval of the minutes from the November 15, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion and a second?
So moved.
A second.
Okay. Staff, roll call, please, Marche.
Chair Millar,
Aye.
Vice Chair Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Abstain.
abstain. Okay. Commissioner Gardner,
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell,
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Walsh.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Thank you. The next agenda item is HIST-09-23-00100, a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness. Emily, would you please discuss?
Property within the 10-mile Community Historic District. This application was deferred by the Commission at their October 2023 meeting. Since the designation of the 10-mile community as a Charleston County Historic District, 12 CHA applications for properties within the district have been received, and you can review those here. Like I mentioned, the 10-mile community was designated as a Charleston County Historic District in June of 2022. In March of 2023, the subject parcel was created from TMS 614-0000-605. So as previously stated, this application was deferred by the Commission in October of last year. During that meeting, the Commission expressed concern about the use of vinyl siding. The applicant has clarified their application to state they will not utilize vinyl siding. Additionally, the Commission was split in their opinion regarding the proposed elevation of the home, which was 9 feet 4 inches. The Commission also requested the applicant provide more information about the elevation of the property. The applicant revised their application to include the ground elevations of the property, which vary from 8 to 8.5 feet in the proposed building footprint. Since the property is in the AE11 and AE12 flood zones, the home would be required to be elevated a minimum of 6 feet to comply with Charleston County building codes. In their revised application, the applicant has stated they would like to keep the proposed elevation of the home at 9 feet 4 inches to allow for additional storage space, but they are willing to lower the elevation to the required minimum of 6 feet if the Commission so desires. So the applicant's proposing to construct a 1,500 square foot elevated 2-story single-family dwelling unit on an existing 0.14 acre parcel. Here's the location of that property when looking at the county overall. Here's a map of the 10-mile historic district showing the property location off of Beehive Road. The 10-mile community was recognized in the 2016 Charleston County Cultural Resources Survey update as a remnant freedmen community having significant social organization and settlement patterns. The subject property is zoned low-density residential R4 and is undeveloped. The future land use designation is urban suburban cultural community protection. Properties to the west, east, north, and south are also zoned R4 and contain single-family dwelling units. The subject property is in the AE12 and AE11 flood zones. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. And these are images of the subject property. These are photos of neighboring properties along Beehive Road. Here is the proposed site plan showing the home. The building footprint is 1,199 square feet of impervious surface, which translates to 19% lot coverage. The applicant updated his site plan to include spot ground elevations, which are shown in red on this plan. Here are elevations of the proposed home and a rendering. And the applicant provided responses to all of the applicable approval criteria. Based on the applicant's responses, the applicable approval criteria have been satisfied. Therefore, staff recommends approval. Prior to the October HPC meeting, where this case was first heard, 6 letters in opposition were received. 23 additional letters in opposition and an opposition petition with 24 signatures were received prior to today's meeting. And this meeting was noticed as required. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, would you?
Looks like 2 people signed up to speak. Craig Askew was first. No, this is fine. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Craig Askew. I live at 987 Jacksonville Road. That's in Owendale, South Carolina, 10 mile to be specific. I do oppose this case number 000100 at the TMS. I got off work to come in person and speak against it. 10 Mile, as you know, is a very small community, and as I've stated before, we are being inundated by all types of buildings, architecture, and increased land development, increasing density, and that's not something that we want. So I do oppose this. I would also like to tell you that on Watson View Road, I approached this commission before. On Watson View Road, the developer has a road named after Craig Askew. Areas like 10 Mile, and I'll give you another example in Hamlin, Mr. Balaam, they have a developer has taken his name and given it to a development that he does not appreciate and does not want. And the same thing is happening to me in 10 Mile. The developer is naming a road after me. I do not like it. I do not appreciate it. I do not want it. And I think it is not historically appropriate as we look at history and how the people in these communities have settled these properties. I don't think it's historically appropriate, and I think it needs to be changed. The only other, and I've talked to Mr. Small and Joel, they were nice enough to give me what they thought were solutions, but I don't, and I'll have to go door to door to each neighbor, and I will do that, go door to door and tell them I do not want that on there. But I don't want to have to do that when I think that it's not appropriate, it's not historically appropriate to name that road name after me and not ask my permission.
Mr. Askew, could I, sorry to interrupt you, but your
Yeah,
time
thank
is
you
up, but
very
I just
much.
had.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank
I was
you.
going to tell you that I don't believe that is our jurisdiction. We do have our attorney right here, but I believe that naming of the road issue would be more of a DOT or,
No, actually, it's
Another-
our 911.
okay,
um,
911?
Consolidated Dispatch names
So-
name of the road.
Well, I respect
Yeah,
your, on
yeah.
that, but that's not, what we're here for
It's not,
today.
it's not about historical appropriateness and
What
that kind of.
what I understand, it has to do with the 911 issue, and that's another, whole nother element of discussion on. But I respect your opinion on what your name is on, and I'm sure you can pursue that and try to get that taken
Is
care
there
of.
any other way, can the attorney opine on that?
Unfortunately, the naming of the road is not a jurisdiction under this body. That's determined through the Consolidated Dispatch Center and the Planning Commission. So unfortunately, you are in front of the wrong body today for that issue, sir.
Thank you very much.
Jerome Hayward? Is it Jerome?
It's Pluniak. It's Jerome Pluniak.
Oh, boy, I really got it wrong. Yeah, I think it is Pluniak, sorry. Yeah. I can't read it, though. Or you can't write, one or the other. I'm sure it's a combination of both.
Give your name and your address, please.
Jerome Pluniak, 948 Beehive Road.
You have 2 minutes.
I'm the applicant, and I think everything, last meeting, they wanted me to, they weren't happy with vinyl siding, and I changed that, as Emily said, and I just, they wanted to know why the house needed to be elevated, so I provided that information to you people, and I guess any other questions?
I have one question, excuse me. I have one question. The elevation, I know you said you wanted to keep it at a 9-foot, is that correct?
Well, I just, to utilize the space instead of a crawl space that you can't access.
But there is no drive under ability, correct?
There isn't, no.
Okay, and that's strictly for storage purposes?
Correct.
So, but would you have a huge issue with going back to the 6-foot?
Well, no, if that's what
If that's the-
they
okay.
recommended, I
But I-
wouldn't have a problem at all.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question for the applicant. Sir, with the site plan, I noticed there are 3 grand oak trees. Is that what prevents the ability to drive under the house? Is that what I'm looking at? Live oak, 32-inch live oak, 28-inch water oak, and 29-inch laurel oak. Is that why your driveway is over?
Yeah, that's a driveway. There's 3 oak trees, and they did recommend that we take one down because it's diseased and dead. So there's 2 oak trees remaining.
With your staircase that you have proposed onto the side like that, with the run of stairs, could that be located in the center, or would it conflict with the trees themselves?
I don't believe it would interfere with the trees. What would be the reason to move the stairway?
Just thinking about with the house, and usually when you approach a house, you approach it from the front, and you have a staircase that goes up to the front instead of on the side. So I was more curious of what the reasoning of putting the staircase on the side like that. Maybe I'll pose it from that question of curiosity of the layout of the staircase.
Yeah, it was just the original design of the house.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? I have one final question, if you don't mind. The actual cement, I noticed there are cement driveways on the neighboring property. Is that correct? And then underneath the home, will it be a permeable substance? Will it be a gravel-based substance, or what's your plan underneath?
Well, if the house is raised to 9 feet, I would put a concrete floor down, but if it's just a crawl space, it would be stone.
No further questions from me. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This case is now closed to public comment. Before discussion, is there a motion and a second from commission? Sir, from my understanding, your time was to
Sign up as.
sign up at the beginning, on which I know you've had an opportunity in the past. I have no issue with that as long as the rest of the board is agreeable. Please present to the microphone and introduce yourself, sir.
Filippo Ravalico, Director of Operations with the South Carolina Environmental Law Project, 510 Live Oak Drive. Emily, can you bring up the summary of the activity of the commission that you have at the beginning of the permit package, where all the permits that are approved, denied, approved, denied. First and foremost, good afternoon. Thank you for extending me the opportunity, even if I was late. One thing I think is important for this commission to be clear is that this shows kind of your track record on the applications received so far. The first three, which alone includes more than 42 lots, they were approved by the county when they settled the lawsuit that the developer. So that's important to keep in mind. It's 42 of the lots that are included on that list are actually approved and will be added to the district, which is why I wanted to make some brief comments today. Some of the criticism we heard about this commission have to do with subjective decision-making here and there, and I think the decision you have today is a very good example or a very good situation where you can have a very objective decision. And you do that by answering the question, is a 0.143 acre lot historically appropriate? Is it consistent with the prevailing pattern of the historic district? If you listen to the community, which I understand they've commented and let them know how they think, the answer is no. If you look at the area character appraisal the community put together, the answer is no. Area character appraisal does nothing more than collect the information available on the ground, so it's objective data. So I'm saying all of this because, of course, it doesn't mean that there exist small lots like this one in the district, and because of those three reversals, there's going to be many more in the near future. But the point here is, is this commission going to be complicit in a death by 1,000 cats of this neighborhood, or gentrification by 1,000 lots? Or are you going to try to stop the bleeding? Are you going to try to preserve the historic value and the historic and the cultural resources of the historic district? So I'm just encouraging you to look at the criteria. The criterion D is the most relevant yet again. Of course, you can also have discussion about architecture, but that's where it gets more subjective. If you stick to the objective criteria of is this lot historically appropriate, I think the answer should be pretty clear. Thank you so much.
I'd just like to make a point, and I appreciate your time in coming up here and speaking to us, that based on our track record, as you mentioned, that we do make decisions, but as you can see, that we do have an opportunity, we have a group that can overrule, and that's obvious here, okay? So again, we do spend the time to pay attention to what's at hand, which is the architectural design and style of the property, okay? Not really the denial part, but thank you. All right, that being said, the case is now closed to public comment. Again, is there a motion and a second from commission? Mr. Papp?
I have some comments to make.
Okay.
This ties in
Probably should
with
make a
what,
motion before we go into comments.
I'm sorry, I forgot your last name, Filippo Ravalito. What he said about the character in the community. And I checked in with the Charleston County Comprehensive Plan.
Pat, let me just interrupt you one moment. I know you have a thought, but it's just brought to mind that we probably should move forward with a motion, if there is going to be a motion in a second before.
I
comment.
will then move to deny.
Okay.
Under,
And based on, what is your denial based on?
And I forget which is which, the one about architecture.
Emily, can you
I'll pull them up.
help with that?
I think it's the first or second one. It's A or B.
All right, so you're going with an
And,
architectural denial.
and I think it's D, which is about the character of the community.
Okay. There's been a motion made, and we're looking up the specific numbered lettering on that. So I guess until we find that, there is a motion being made. Is there a second, or would we go ahead and get this a little bit more definite? Continue, Ms. Jones.
All right, so back to the comp plan. The comp plan says, under CR3, work with communities along the Gullah Geechee corridor to establish ways to preserve the unique settlement patterns and community character. If we approve, this house does not fit in with the character of the houses in the 10-mile community. And I think by approving it, we would do them a great disservice. If you look at I think it's a 200-page report, which the 10-mile community had created and passed on to us, it lists the architectural styles that are prevalent in the 10-mile community. 34% are ranch. 1% are American vernacular. 42% are craftsmen. 2% are split level. 34% are manufactured, i.e. mobile homes. And 2% are minimal traditional. Nowhere does it say anything that describes the architecture of this proposed house. Also, if you look, the houses that are in 10 Mile, don't count the brand new ones that Crescent Homes is building. They're 1 story high. You don't see any of them with room underneath. The 6 feet that the applicant has now said he's willing to go to. That's not typical at all in the 10 Mile community. So we're doing them a disservice to come in and allow something that does not fit in with what is typical in the 10 Mile community and to build something that is 2 stories.
Yes.
I was looking at the application history, and the things that we talked about were the siding being vinyl, and he agreed to change it to hardy plank. We did talk about the height, and one of the things that I brought up, and I still feel this way, is the amount of flooding that we've been having, especially in that area. And the houses that are currently there probably wished that they could be lifted 8 feet so that their homes will not flood. So, I mean, that's something that we talked about. He agreed to go back down to 6 feet. But if you can't store under the house, then what good is that? And second, the lot is pretty small, which we've discussed. And by building a 2-story house, you're shrinking the footprint of the actual house. So you're going up, and you're not building on the ground as much as you would, anyway, you know what I'm saying.
Okay.
So I feel like, we didn't talk about the way the house looked, and we didn't have a problem with it the last time. So he came back with the same plans, and now we're saying that it's not, we should have said that before. That's it.
We've had 2 months to think about it, and I've looked at it and looked at it and looked at it. And he said he's willing to go back, the AE 12 and AE 11 require 6 feet up. We can't deny that. And I'm not saying he can't do that, or I'm not saying that he shouldn't do that. That's not my issue. My issue is the size of the house for the size of the property. Because if you go, please,
And you're shrinking the footprint. So he can have a 1,600 square foot house, which is not that big.
I'd like to finish, please. Again, it's not typical in the 10-mile community. And I mentioned the characteristics, the styles that are typical in 10 Mile, and this is not a 10-mile style at all. And if you look at the houses that are right next door, if you go, that are also owned by family members, one of them is on a third of an acre, and the other one is on a half acre. The third of the acre has a 15,000 square foot house.
1,500.
1,500?
1,500. I'm sorry, I was reading the wrong line here. 1,500 square feet. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a garage. And then you go one more down to 958 Beehive, and it is 2 stories, but if you look at it, you can't tell that it's 2 stories. And it's 2,700 square feet, 2 stories, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths with a garage. My issue is this is too large for the size of the lot and the character.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Is there any other discussion? Yes, sir.
I have
Mr. Walsh.
one comment and perhaps a question as well. My comment dovetails with what Commissioner Purcell just said, and this is same situation we were in last meeting with these houses that we defer and we make specific recommendations on. And then the owner, builder, whoever comes back the next meeting or the next opportunity, and they've made all the changes that we asked them to make. To me, if you're not going to go by what you told them last time, that's a classic case of moving the goalpost. So we tend to paint ourselves into this corner by making these specific recommendations on changes in finishes and roof pitches, and that takes me to my question. Are we here to serve as an architectural review board?
The Historic Preservation Commission has approval criteria, and their charge under state law is that they look at the architecture and not the zoning of properties.
Quite frankly, I don't feel like I'm an expert in architecture, historic architecture. I hear a lot about this in the community I live in and whether things are historic, 6-over-6 windows, things of that sort. I just think this is a little bit certainly beyond my level of expertise. And frankly, when I was asked to join this commission, I guess I didn't realize that this was going to be functioning as an architectural review board.
I think that that is part of our function, but it's also designating, you know. I mean, I think that's what initially what we really thought this was what this commission was set up to be, as a designating committee that also, you know, is involved with renovations and other things, which now is under the umbrella of architectural. And, you know, everyone has their own opinions of that. And I think we've looked at a big, diverse group of homes in these communities. But there there is a common theme, but at the same time, progress changes and styles change, and it's about adapting and making things, I think, fit and work. And I agree with you. I agree with you that we have, this gentleman's come up, that he's asked us what he can do to make this, get approved. We sent him back, and here we are again, going over the same issues. And I think that one of the big issues, I'm looking at 948 Beehive Road right now. Emily, if you could just pull that back up again. That's an elevated home, as far as the crawl space. Of course, it's not a 9-foot, but it is elevated. It's not a ranch that's on the ground. It's, going to have the opportunity to be flooded. So I think that we do need to be more specific as much as we can be. And I agree with Mr. Walsh on this.
I have a comment.
I'll allow you to make your comment.
There were two ladies who spoke at the last meeting about the size of the lot. And we didn't address it, and somebody on our commission commented that, hey, we didn't address their comments. So with 2 months to think about this, that's what made me start thinking about what does this house look like? And I don't know if those two ladies are in the audience now or not. But so I started looking at what does this house look like? And then I've been through the 10 Mile area character appraisal multiple times. And how can we ignore the styles that are typical in 10 Mile? None of them look like this proposed house. So I feel like we are doing 10 Mile a disservice by approving this. And then nobody has mentioned that there was a petition with 24 signatures against this application, plus 23 separate letters against, for a total of 47 against. Are we going to ignore 10 Mile?
Ms. Sullivan, that was mentioned. That was discussed when we did first came in with how many people had opposition. I believe Emily read that.
And I missed that.
That was in the minutes.
So I'm trying to protect 10 Mile.
I thank you for your comments. I
Jason.
believe we have someone who would like to speak over.
I have
Jason.
a question for staff before a comment. Ms. Piggott, what is the square footage of this proposed house?
1,500 square feet.
1,500 square feet. Thank you. That's what I thought. So my comments are, I think as proposed, and I was the one asking the questions about the elevation at the last meeting that this was considered, and because I do think as proposed, 9.5 feet is unnecessarily high for this structure. I believe Ms. Sullivan just said that 1,500 square feet is a fairly average house size in this district. Also, I would argue that this style is craftsman or evokes craftsman, of which Ms. Sullivan, you said about 42% of the houses in the survey are craftsman and styles. So I do think that what you're saying is that, in my opinion, this does indeed fit into the surrounding character, because it is indeed fitting in with the surrounding scale and context. I would argue that we should lower the foundational area down to 6 or 7 feet, and maybe even add some additional screening to the front where it appears that there are garage bays. But otherwise, I would be voting to approve this with some conditions, because I do feel like this does meet the overall character and appropriateness of the district.
I'm asking if there's any other discussion at this time, but call for the vote, the initial
I'm
vote.
going to make a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
This is not an easy decision for us to make. I understand we've asked for some changes to be made, and some of the changes might have been because we were looking at trying to keep up with what looks like the character, part of the character of the community. I do believe that the residents have a voice, have a strong voice in what they would like to see in their community. And because of that, I'm looking more at, does this house really represent the character of the community? And it doesn't. The size, lot size, that is different as well. Maybe when we first looked at this and asked about some changes to be made, we should have been looking at more of the character and the size of the lots. I cannot support this approval for the house when I see that it really does not, to me, fit with the character of what is in the community right now. And I hope that the residents of 10 Mile is working hard to come up with what they really see as what is their community, what they want to see built in their community going forward, comparing to what you already have. Not to say that there cannot be some changes, but I think that it would be helpful for me if you had some guidelines as to what you really want to see. So I hope that the Community Association is working on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. At this time, with no other discussion, I'll ask for staff to call for the vote.
Remind the.
Would you please restate the motion?
The motion, and my understanding, we went through a couple of the specifics, and I'll ask again, Ms. Pat, to clarify which one that she was going over, denial because of the criteria. And I believe that you said the architectural style.
D. I think it's D.
D, and D. So that would be, again, would you state what D? Would you clarify what D is in this case?
Emily can read it.
Yeah. So certificate of historic appropriateness applications for properties located within historic districts or for subdivision plats or site plan review proposals for properties located within 300 feet of historic districts must demonstrate consistency with the prevailing patterns of existing lots, densities, spacing of homes, lot sizes and shapes, and other characteristics of the historic district that the Historic Preservation Commission deems applicable.
Okay, so that being said, we're going with D.
Sorry? Madam Chair, may I
Yes,
ask a
ma'am.
question?
Yes.
Just to be clear, so the proposal for this particular structure, is this neighboring to a residence that the owner already has?
Already has.
Yes, I just looked at one of the maps, it looked like there was an existing
correct.
dwelling. So he has two properties, and the one that he's asking us to look at is for neighboring property. So he's currently a resident of 10 Mile?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I don't know if the gentleman who spoke up earlier, have they, since they're all part of this particular community that is trying to establish what they'd like their community to look like, have they talked with the particular owner about how they would like it to look? I mean, I know they've made some comments, but they're all part of this community, and I'm not sure how long they've been a part of this, how long the owner's been a part of this community, but he is part of the 10 Mile community, which has been established as historic. So I just wanted to be clear on the fact that, I'm not sure if he's trying to make sure that he's complying with what they want this community to look like, or if he is just wants to upgrade something different than what he already has in his neighboring property.
I believe the applicant would probably be willing to answer that quickly if that's.
That would be
I can't-
helpful.
So I believe the question is, have you reached out to community members?
No, I haven't.
Okay, and that does, I'm just following suit with that particular comment. I would think that would be an obvious thing since it is designated as a historic community, but again, I understand you are following codes and regulations of zoning, and you have been approved. But I agree that there should be some dialogue, hopefully, because this is a neighborhood, but I know we do lose sight of that occasionally. So I hope that conversation would continue, just like what they're looking for with their particular housing plans, to have a common theme and have something that's totally understood by future builders and
Well, myself
residents.
and my family are part of the community, but, I mean, what I see here is that they just don't want any development, and they don't want me to, construct a new home for my family. But, as far as reaching out to anybody, it's obvious that they, wouldn't have input on what the house should look like, just because there's so much negativity against construction.
I do believe there has been dialogue in the past, and there has been progress. So I'm sorry that you feel that way, because I have seen them work hard in order
Well, I
to
mean,
try
I do
to.
know the Askews, and he's building houses. I mean, he's got 5 lots right behind our property that they're going to construct on, and he's up here telling you, no construction. To me, that's,
Okay.
This is going to go down. the rabbit
I appreciate
he's
you
got a
answering.
street named after him where they built
Well-
all the houses.
I appreciate you answering her question. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This time I'll call for the vote, please. All discussions closed.
Chair Millar,
No.
Vice Chair Crowley,
No.
Commissioner Johnson, Commissioner Gardner, Commissioner Purcell, Commissioner Sullivan,
So it's aye to deny, yes.
Commissioner Walsh. It doesn't pass.
That is the final decision.
Another motion.
Pardon me? There is no, and I believe is there another motion to be made before we move forward?
I move that we do approve this house.
Would you like, anyone like to amend anything that we had discussed?
Criteria that your motion is under.
We're talking about the 9-foot as opposed to a 6-foot variance?
I say 7 feet, 8 feet. Approval criteria.
Is there any other discussion at this time before a motion is made on that? Any other changes or?
So the motion is to approve under criteria what?
B.
Under criteria B, and just restate, you said a 7-foot
7 foot, 7 to 8 feet.
height as opposed to the 9 requested.
Correct.
Any other discussion before our,
Madam Chair, we still need a second.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second with a request to amend the motion to specify 7 feet and add additional screening to the front of those bays where the storage is.
Okay, there's been a motion and then a second, but it has been amended of sorts to just have a additional screening added, or just adding additional screening to the bay?
So my request is to specify 7 feet for the foundation and to add the additional screening to the foundation area.
Ms. Purcell, do you accept that?
I do, yes.
So the motion has been made and seconded, and you accept the accommodation?
Correct.
Okay. All right, that being said, there's a motion and a second to have a 7-foot foundation and a screening to the front of the bay areas. I don't know, is that something we need to see if the applicant is agreeable to before we move forward? No? Okay. All right, the motion has been made and seconded. I'll ask for a vote.
Okay, Chair Millar,
Aye.
Vice Chair Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Nay.
Commissioner Gardner,
Nay.
Commissioner Purcell,
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan, and Commissioner Walsh.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Ayes have it. Okay, this is the final decision of the Historic Preservation Commission. If any person with a substantial interest in the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission chooses to appeal the decision, they may do so at the Circuit Court of Charleston County. Such an appeal shall be filed within 30 calendar days after today's date. All right. The next agenda item is HIST-11-23-00102, a request for a certificate of historic appropriateness. Emily, please discuss.
Thank you very much. So this applicant is requesting a certificate of historic appropriateness for the retroactive improvements to the carriage house and parking lot, along with additional parking lot improvements and the construction of a new horse barn at TMS 361-00-00001, which is Magnolia Plantations and Gardens, a property listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So last March, the commission approved a CHA for the new restroom replacement building. The applicant then finished limited site plan review for that project in May of last year. Also in May of 2023, the commission approved a CHA for the demolition of the reptile house and its reconstruction in a new location on the property. Limited site plan review for that project was finalized in June of last year. In September, the commission approved a CHA for the demolition of a horse barn and conservatory on the property as well. So the applicant's project description states there are 3 aspects to this application. So first is addressing retroactive improvements that were made to the carriage house. And those included replacement of all the doors and windows, repairs to the existing wood siding, and replacement of the roof. Additionally, second part of this application is the retroactive and proposed improvements to the parking lot. So the parking lot kind of developed over time as the visitorship and capacity changed at the historic site. And now they are seeking to bring that parking lot into compliance with our zoning ordinance by adding things such as wheel stops, required ADA parking, and tree islands to comply with our ordinance requirements. There also, the third part of this application is the construction of a new horse barn. Again, you previously approved the demolition of the previous horse barn, and this is a new proposed horse barn in a slightly different location on the property. So here is the subject parcel when looking at the county as a whole. The subject property is zoned rural agricultural, AG 8, and contains a historic site. Adjacent properties in the county to the south are also zoned AG 8 and contain more portions of Magnolia Plantation. Properties to the west are within the city of Charleston and zoned conservation in AG 8 and are undeveloped. Properties to the north are within the city of North Charleston, zoned agricultural, and are being used agriculturally. Properties to the east across the Ashley River are within the city of North Charleston, zoned R1, and contain single-family dwelling units. The subject parcel is in the AE9, AE10, shaded X, and X flood zones. Here's an aerial view of the subject property. So Magnolia Plantation and Gardens was listed on the National Register of Historic Places on December 11th of 1972. Areas of significance include commerce, conservation, horticulture, and landscape architecture. So here is the overall site plan for the project, and the applicant has labeled the horse barn, parking lot, and carriage house areas that we're reviewing today. Here is the as-built tree and topographic survey for the property, and there is a detail there as well. Okay, so starting with the carriage house. Again, these are retroactive improvements that have already been made. They're just seeking permitting. So here is the site plan. There were no changes to the building footprint. And the applicant provided a series of photos to demonstrate how the building has evolved over time, starting with how the carriage house looked in 2006. And then these images are a comparison between 2020 and how the carriage house looks today. And then another angle from 2022 and today. And also from 2022 and today as well. And here are images of the current conditions of the carriage house. Okay, so now moving on to the parking lot. Here is a comparison on the left-hand side between the existing parking lot site plan and on the right-hand side, the plan that is proposed. Again, for this portion of the project, work was completed without permits, which the applicant is seeking to rectify today. And additional improvements to the parking lot are also being proposed to comply with our zoning ordinance. Here are the site plan details that show a little bit more about how the parking lot is going to function. And the applicant provided aerial images to show how that parking lot space has evolved over time. So starting with 2001 and running through 2015 on this slide. And then these images are 2017 through 2023. And so the last portion of this project is the new horse barn. So here is the site plan showing the new horse barn proposed location. The applicant stated that the location was chosen because it's out of the drip line and impact zone of any grand trees. Additionally, they won't be having to trench and run any utilities because they're not planning on installing any in this facility. So here are the floor plan and elevations for the proposed horse barn and the sections. And the applicant did provide responses to all of the approval criteria as required. And because of that, staff recommends approval. We did not receive any public input concerning this case, and we did, of course, notice as required. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emily. Any questions for staff before, for staff and the commission members?
I have a question, Madam
Yes,
Chair.
Jason?
With the site clearing that had occurred to create the parking over time, do you know if any grand trees were removed?
I think that the applicant would be able to better answer that, but what I can say is that they are, of course, complying with our site plan review process and everything that would require as well.
So just to be clear, so we are asking to review 3 particular areas: the improvements to the carriage house, changes to the visitor parking lot, and construction of a horse barn. So 3.
That is correct.
Okay.
Can we take those as 3 different votes, or do we need to take it all together?
You can separate it.
Would anyone like to take them one at a time to stay in order?
I think one at a time is.
Would you like a motion to to separate these 3?
I make a motion to separate all 3.
I second.
Okay. There's been a motion, and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion before we make the vote?
Well, we got to.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. All right, well, then we're going to, since we've had no letters, you said in opposition, okay, then we're going to hear the public comment. I believe you said there were 2.
Laura Altman.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Laura Altman, OFA Architecture. I am the applicant, and Craig Wellman is also here with me from Magnolia Plantation. I would like to just mention, and I hope this doesn't come across as like trying to make excuses or anything, but Craig has only been at Magnolia for a few years. I came in and started working on the project after the carriage house renovations were underway. Craig had been told by the contractor doing that work that he didn't need permits, that those replacements were just considered repairs, and therefore there was no architect of record for that project, and were no permits pulled by the contractor. So as we started the process of doing the restroom building, and which I was the architect, I am the architect of record for that, and for the reptile building, we found out about these things and realized the issues. The parking lot has evolved over time, as you could see from those aerial photos, in large part due to Craig's predecessor, just where they, added some more gravel here, added some more gravel there. So to answer your question about the grand trees, I honestly don't know. The survey we have is just from about a year ago. So we are here and we're happy to answer questions that we can, knowing that some of this work was done prior to our time. Does that help? Thank you.
Anyone, any other questions? Okay. All right. We'll go ahead and take the vote we're taking the vote now for the separation of the 3 different items to be voted on separately. Okay.
Chair Millar,
Aye.
Vice Chair Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner,
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell,
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Walsh.
Nay.
Ayes have it.
So I'm assuming we start, since in precedence as far as the order on the actual agenda, or is the carriage house would be first, is that, okay? All right. Any specific discussion on the,
Or a motion.
or motion, or
I'd like
second?
to make a motion, if I may, to
Yes, sir.
approve this structure for a certificate of historic appropriateness.
Is there a second?
And the reason.
And your reason, Mark?
I've also got it up, sir, if you need to
Great.
review it on the screen.
I would say under both criteria A and B.
Criteria A and B, okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion to be approved for a certificate of historic appropriateness for the carriage house based on criteria A and B. And there has been a second at this time.
Discussion.
I
Yeah,
have some questions.
discussion.
I have a question for
All
the
right.
applicant, and I understand not everything may be answered, but Ms. Altman, if you wouldn't mind, could you just briefly describe what the changes were that had been made that we're seeking retroactive approval for to the structure?
So the repairs that needed to be made, and based on the contractor's scope of work, were to remove the metal roof and replace it, install new windows, and install new doors. In some areas, some places, some of the French doors were replaced with windows because of repetitive flooding. The doors and windows that were there were not very old, but because of the repetitive flooding, they were rotten and deteriorated. So they were insulated doors and windows even at that time. And so there was an attachment within your application packet, looks kind of like this, that the contractor had put together, a simple drawing showing which doors would switch to windows and which ones would just be replaced as doors. And then in addition, take off any of the rotten or deteriorated siding and replace that. They went back with the same type of siding, that live edge siding, and repainted everything. There were also interior renovations, but my understanding is that's kind of beyond the scope of what y'all care about. Does that help answer your question, sir?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Madam Chair. Emily, just you mentioned that they were waiting on some permits. Is that also required for any of the changes they would need to make?
So the first step would be coming before you all today, and then if it does go favorably, they can move forward with the permitting process and close out site plan review.
Any other questions of the applicant or discussion at this time? Hearing none?
Oh, no, we have a motion to approve.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Again, would you like me to review the motion or go clear on that? Okay. Staff, at this time, we take a vote.
Okay. Chair Millar,
Aye.
Vice Chair Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Garner,
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell,
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Walsh.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes have it.
Unanimous. Okay. Moving forward to the second item would be the parking lot site, I guess, where a motion at this time, and someone to second that, please.
Second.
Oh, what is the motion? Someone make the motion to approve it, or have any kind of recommendations?
We did it first.
No, we're waiting on a first. We have a second, but I'm waiting on a first. We can't kind of go that order.
Sorry, I thought I heard somebody make a motion.
Would you like to make the first? Would you like to make the motion?
No, I did the last one.
Okay.
I'll let somebody else have the
Okay.
pleasure.
I will make a motion to approve under criteria A.
Okay.
Second the motion.
There has been a motion and a second for there to be a certificate of historic appropriateness to, I guess we're revising or creating the parking lot based on criteria A. And any discussion on that? Yes, Pat?
Yeah. I have a question, and I don't remember where in here I read it, but there were references to trees and pine trees. Are y'all taking down all of your pine trees, or are you leaving some?
So the parking lot, like when you look on the maps that you see, the parking
Yeah.
lot at the top of the drawing,
Yep.
that's a smaller parking lot that actually dates even back to about 1920s, some portion of that. That's where all the pine trees are, and we're not messing with that part at all. The area, the larger portion of the parking lot where we're adding the tree islands, we will be removing some smaller plants and replacing those with more indigenous trees and plants, because wouldn't you have Japanese maples or something there? But we're in that island. Okay, so the current tree islands, which aren't really delineated, have a bunch of different little trees and all that look good but aren't necessarily appropriate to South Carolina or to the whole concept of magnolia plantation. So those are the ones we would be pulling out, but they're all very small. Nothing grand.
Okay, I asked because people around here seem to love to take out pine trees. And
We're not removing
I don't
any
get
pine
it, so I'm
trees.
glad you're leaving them.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Any further question or discussion? Hearing none. Again, motion for approval, historicness, certificate of appropriateness based on criteria A. I'll take a vote.
Chair Millar,
Aye.
Vice Chair Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner,
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell,
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Walsh.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
We're in. Third and final issue would be the horse barn that is being proposed.
Move for approval.
All right, we have a motion for approval based on criteria
A.
A. All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
There's been a first and a second, and for the approval of historic certificate of historic appropriateness based on criteria A. Any discussion or question for the applicant or staff? Hearing none, I'll ask for the vote, please, staff.
Chair Millar,
Aye.
Vice Chair Crowley,
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson,
Aye.
Commissioner Gardner,
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell,
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
Commissioner Walsh.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
Okay, thank you. This is the final decision of the Historic Preservation Commission. If any person with a substantial interest in the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission chooses to appeal the decision, they may do so to the Circuit Court of Charleston County. Such an appeal should be filed within 30 calendar days after today's date. All right. The last item on the agenda is remarks. I believe we have something coming up. Is that?
Yeah, well, we do have a February meeting.
Okay.
We have a case list. How many cases, Emily?
Yeah, so in February, you'll be seeing 3 cases, all in the 10-mile community, all contiguous lots for single-family dwellings.
All right. And
March, some
Yeah.
training.
yes, I was going to mention that. In the March meeting, we're going to have a special meeting. That meeting will start at 12 o'clock. So just remember that. We'll send out email reminders. But the March meeting will start at 12. We will provide a lunch. In that meeting, we will have the Board of Zoning Appeals Secretary, Jenny Working, give a brief training session and to the board, which we hope will be very helpful. And also, you will have your elections for officers, chair and vice chair, at that meeting. And then if we have cases for March, we will go into the regular meeting at 2 o'clock. So from 12 to 2, we're scheduling training. Now, the training that will occur from 12 to 2 will count toward 1.5 hours of the required 3-hour training for folks. So it's worthwhile to come. You get lunch too, so why not, right? Okay.
Well, you better have a good lunch now.
We're going to do our best, Ms. Johnson.
Question for you.
We will have a good one. It won't be shrimp and grits, but it'll be something good.
Question for you. So, because I think I might be one of those people who's transitioning off the board. I think my 2 years will be up. But my question is the training before or after the election? Because
We haven't set the agenda yet, so, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Ms. Gardner, you're on my cycle. Councilman Middleton is up for re-election in November, so you're
Okay.
on through the end of this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. That's fine. I just thought.
Was that your,
Well,
was that your question?
Well, yeah, maybe 2. Those were 2 questions because I was wondering because I thought if, the training is before the elections.
Oh,
then
I see
I'm
what
not.
for chair.
When you said
Yeah.
elections, I
Yeah.
thought you meant for, before the elections of officers for the meeting. I'm sorry.
Okay.
For council elections,
For council,
yes.
that's fine.
Yes.
Okay.
I misunderstood that.
For chair and vice chair, elections for chair and vice chair.
Gotcha.
of
Okay.
this.
Okay.
That's what I
Thank
meant by
you.
that.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
So got a little while with it.
Got a little while. Very good.
Okay, anyone else? Any other questions about the training or any other? All right. If there is no further business, this meeting of the Charleston County Historic Preservation Commission stands adjourned. The commission will hold its next regularly scheduled meeting on February 21st, 2024 in council chambers.